She thought she was just walking home, until a stranger suddenly stopped his car beside her. At first she felt scared, but what he did next shocked the entire neighborhood. It was a quiet evening in the small city of Brookdale. The sky had turned a soft orange as the sun slowly disappeared behind rows of buildings and trees. People were heading home after a long day, and the streets were beginning to calm down. 14-year-old Maya adjusted the straps of her backpack as she walked along the sidewalk. She had stayed a little late at school that day to finish a project, and now she was heading home alone. Usually, her older brother picked her up, but today he had a basketball game across town, and her mom was working the evening shift. Maya wasn't scared of walking home. She had done it before. Still, the streets felt quieter than usual, and the long shadows from the streetlights made everything look different. She walked past a small grocery store where the owner was closing the shutters. "Evening, Maya," the owner said kindly. "Good evening," she replied with a smile. The air was warm, but a light breeze moved through the trees lining the road. Leaves rustled softly as Maya continued walking. She checked the time on her phone. Only 15 more minutes to reach home. Everything seemed normal, until something unusual happened. A black car slowly turned the corner ahead of her. At first, Maya didn't think much of it. Cars passed through this street all the time. But this car didn't drive past her. Instead, it slowed down. Then it stopped, right beside her. Maya's heart skipped a beat. Her steps slowed slightly as she glanced toward the car. The windows were tinted and she couldn't clearly see inside. For a moment, the street felt very quiet. Too quiet. Her mind started racing with questions. Was the driver lost? Did they want directions? Or was something wrong? She tightened her grip on her backpack straps and kept walking. The car started moving again, slowly, still beside her. Now Maya could feel a small wave of nervousness building inside her. She remembered the safety advice her mom always gave her. Stay calm, stay aware. Suddenly, the car stopped again. This time, the driver's window rolled down. Maya froze for a moment, unsure what to do. Inside the car was a man in his mid-30s. He looked serious, but not angry. In fact, he seemed concerned. "Hey," the man said gently. "Are you okay?" Maya didn't answer immediately. She kept a small distance from the car. "I'm fine," she replied carefully. The man looked down the street and then back at her. "I noticed you've been walking alone for a while," he said. "This area gets pretty quiet around this time." Maya nodded slightly but stayed cautious. "I live nearby," she said. The man seemed relieved to hear that. "That's good," he replied. "I didn't want to scare you. I just wanted to make sure you were safe." For a moment, Maya didn't know what to think. Was he just being kind, or was something else going on? Before she could respond, something unexpected happened. A loud sound echoed from the other side of the street, like someone dropping something heavy. Maya quickly turned her head. Across the road, near a small alley, 2 teenagers were arguing loudly. One of them kicked a trash can, sending it rolling across the pavement. The sudden noise made Maya step back. The man in the car noticed immediately. He frowned slightly, watching the situation carefully. "Hey," he said calmly. "Maybe it's better if you walk on the other side of the street." Maya looked unsure. She didn't know this man, but she could also feel that the situation nearby was getting tense. The teenagers were still shouting, and more people were starting to look. The man spoke again. "I'm not trying to bother you," he said kindly. "Just stay safe." For a moment, Maya studied his face. He didn't look suspicious. He looked worried. Then something else happened that made the situation even more surprising. A police car suddenly turned onto the street from the corner ahead. Its lights flashed briefly as it slowed down near the arguing teenagers. The street became active again. People stepped outside shops. Someone opened a window. The quiet moment had disappeared. The man in the car sighed softly. "Looks like things are under control," he said. Maya nodded again. She started to walk forward. But before she could move away completely, the man said something that completely changed the story. "By the way, I think I saw someone following you earlier." Maya stopped. Her heart started beating faster. "What?" she asked quietly. The man looked serious now. "I'm not sure," he said. "But a gray hoodie, walking behind you 2 blocks back." Maya suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. She had been walking for almost 20 minutes. Had someone really been following her? Or was it just a misunderstanding? She slowly looked behind her. The street seemed normal, but something didn't feel the same anymore. And what happened next would soon surprise everyone in the neighborhood. Maya slowly turned her head and looked behind her again. The streetlights had started turning on one by one. casting long shadows across the sidewalk. Cars passed occasionally, but the area was still quieter than usual. For a moment, she didn't see anyone unusual. But then, she noticed something. About half a block away, someone was walking slowly near the corner of the street, a person wearing a gray hoodie. Maya's heart skipped again. Was that the person the man had mentioned? She couldn't clearly see the face, but the figure seemed to pause when Maya looked back. That made her feel uneasy. The man in the car noticed her expression. "You see them?" he asked calmly. Maya nodded slightly. "I think so." The man glanced in his rearview mirror and then back at the road. "Listen," he said gently. "I don't want to scare you, but I noticed that person walking behind you since the last intersection." Maya's mind started racing. Why didn't she notice before? Had she been distracted by her phone? Her music? Or was the person just walking the same direction? Sometimes people walk the same path. That doesn't mean anything is wrong. But something about the situation felt strange. The gray-hooded person suddenly crossed the street, then stopped. Now they were standing under a streetlight. Watching, Maya felt a knot form in her stomach. The man in the car seemed to notice it too. "Okay," he said quietly. "That's a little unusual." Maya took a small step closer to the curb, still keeping distance from the car but also feeling unsure about walking forward. The man raised his hand slightly to show he meant no harm. "Hey, don't worry," he said. "I'm not trying to get you in my car or anything. I just want to make sure you get home safely." That made Maya relax a little. But she was still cautious. "My house is just a few streets away," she said. The man nodded. "Good." He looked back toward the person in the gray hoodie. The figure started walking again, slowly, toward them. Now the situation was becoming more uncomfortable. Maya noticed something else. The street had become unusually quiet again. Even the teenagers who had been arguing earlier were gone now. It was just her, the stranger in the car, and the person walking closer. The man suddenly reached into his pocket. For a split second, Maya became nervous again. But then she realized what he was doing. He pulled out a small badge, a real badge. He held it where she could see clearly. "I probably should have shown this earlier," he said calmly. Maya's eyes widened. He was a detective. "I'm Detective Harris," he explained. "I work in this area." Maya blinked in surprise. Everything suddenly started making more sense. "You're a police officer?" she asked. "Detective," he corrected gently. "Off duty right now." He glanced again at the approaching figure. "Actually, I was heading home when I noticed that person earlier." Something felt off. Maya felt both relieved and confused at the same time. But the situation wasn't over yet. The gray-hooded person was now only a few steps away. Detective Harris opened his car door slowly and stepped out. His calm confidence immediately changed the atmosphere. The person in the hoodie hesitated, then stopped walking. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. The wind moved softly across the road. Then Detective Harris spoke firmly but politely. "Hey there. Everything okay?" The person looked nervous now. "Yeah, just walking," they replied. Their voice sounded unsure. Detective Harris studied them carefully. Maya stayed a few steps back, watching everything unfold. Something about the situation didn't feel normal. And the detective seemed to feel the same way. "Mind if I ask where you're heading?" he asked. The person pointed vaguely down the street. "Just that way." But there was something strange about their answer. They didn't sound confident. Detective Harris noticed it immediately. He glanced briefly toward Maya and then back at the person. The tension in the air was noticeable now. Even Maya could feel it. And then suddenly, the person turned around and started walking quickly in the opposite direction. Almost like they didn't want to stay there anymore. Detective Harris watched carefully but didn't chase them. After a few seconds, he looked back at Maya. "Well," he said. "That was interesting." Maya nodded. "Were they really following me?" she asked. The detective sighed slightly. "I'm not completely sure," he said honestly. But their behavior was definitely suspicious. Maya felt a wave of relief. If the detective hadn't been there, she might have continued walking without realizing anything. And that thought made her realize something important. This stranger didn't stop to scare her. He stopped to protect her. Detective Harris smiled slightly. "All right," he said. "Let's make sure you get home safely." Maya hesitated for a moment. Then she asked something that would soon lead to an unexpected moment that the entire neighborhood would talk about later. "Why did you notice me in the first place?" Detective Harris paused. Then he said something surprising. Because, he said, you reminded me of someone important. Maya looked confused. Who? She asked. The detective smiled softly. My daughter. And what happened next? For a moment, Maya didn't know what to say. You have a daughter? She asked. Detective Harris nodded. Yeah, he said with a soft smile. She's about your age. Maya looked surprised. Really? 14, he replied. Just like you. The street suddenly felt less tense now, but the moment still carried a quiet seriousness. Detective Harris leaned slightly against his car, still watching the direction where the gray-hooded person had disappeared. You see, he continued, when you work long enough protecting people, you start noticing things others might miss. Maya listened carefully. And when I saw you walking alone, he added, I couldn't just ignore it. The honesty in his voice made Maya feel a lot more comfortable now. But something else happened at that exact moment. A woman's voice suddenly called out from down the street. Maya? Maya quickly turned. It was her mother. She was walking quickly toward them, looking worried. Maya, I was trying to call you, her mom said as she approached. I got off work early and came looking for you. Maya pulled out her phone and realized something. Her battery had died. Oh no, Maya said. My phone turned off. Her mom sighed in relief when she saw she was okay. Then she noticed Detective Harris standing nearby. For a second, she looked confused. Is everything all right? Her mother asked. Maya nodded quickly. Yeah, he was just making sure I was safe. Detective Harris politely introduced himself. Good evening, ma'am. I'm Detective Harris. I noticed Maya walking alone and just wanted to keep an eye on things. Maya's mom immediately looked grateful. Thank you, she said sincerely. I really appreciate that. Just then, something unexpected happened again. Across the street, the same gray-hooded person appeared once more, but this time they were speaking to a police officer who had arrived in another patrol car. Apparently, the earlier disturbance had caused officers to stay nearby. The officer seemed to be asking questions. The person looked nervous again. Maya and her mother watched quietly. Detective Harris spoke calmly. Looks like the officers want to make sure everything's okay. After a few minutes, the officer waved toward Detective Harris. He walked over briefly to talk to them. Maya and her mother couldn't hear the entire conversation, but they noticed the officer nodding. When Detective Harris came back, his expression was serious but calm. Everything's all right, he explained. Just someone acting suspicious in the area earlier. Maya felt a strange mix of relief and realization. If the detective hadn't stopped earlier, things might have felt very different. Her mom gently placed a hand on her shoulder. I'm glad someone was watching out for you, she said. Detective Harris smiled. That's part of the job, even when we're off duty. But the story didn't end there. What happened next surprised everyone. A small group of neighbors had started gathering nearby. Word had spread quickly that a detective had stepped in to help a teenager walking home alone. Someone had even recorded part of the moment earlier when Detective Harris spoke to the suspicious person. Within minutes, people were talking about it. One neighbor said something that stuck with everyone. Not many people stopped to help anymore. Another person nodded. That's true. Detective Harris looked a little embarrassed by the attention. I was just doing what anyone should do, he said. But Maya's mom shook her head. No, she said. Not everyone would. Maya looked at the detective again. Earlier, she had been nervous when the car first stopped beside her. Now she understood something important. Sometimes a stranger stops not to cause trouble, but to protect someone, and that lesson stayed with her. The next day, something unexpected happened again. The video recorded by the neighbor had been posted online. At first, only a few people saw it, then more and more. Within hours, the story started spreading across the city. People were sharing the moment, not because something bad happened, but because someone chose to do the right thing. Comments began appearing under the video. This restored my faith in people. Respect to that detective. We need more people like him. Local news even picked up the story. They called it a small moment of awareness that made a big difference. But for Maya, it wasn't about going viral. It was about something simpler. That evening changed the way she looked at the world. A few days later, something heartwarming happened again. Detective Harris returned to the neighborhood, this time with his daughter. He introduced her to Maya. The two girls quickly became friends, and what started as a quiet walk home turned into a story about kindness, awareness, and how one person paying attention can change everything. Because sometimes, the unexpected thing a stranger does is simply choosing to care.